Nick's here. Welcome, everybody. Think you know China? Think again. Social credit, censorship, protests. Are these myths or reality? Today, we talk with Jerry Gray, who's lived in China for over 20 years, taught, consulted, and seen daily life firsthand. Join us as we uncover the truth behind the headlines and separate fact from Western propaganda. So let's get started. Jerry, in the West, we often hear that China exercises total control over its citizens through social credit scores, surveillance, and censorship. What's really true, and what's just typical Western hype?
Okay, I would challenge any person to ask any Chinese person, what's your social credit score? And they will look at you with bemusement. They don't know what you're talking about. Do you mean my financial credit score? Everyone has a financial credit score, and you can go to the bank and you can print it out. But what business is it of yours to ask my wife what her financial credit score is? None. So you wouldn't ask that question. But if you ask her, what's your social credit score? Or she would laugh. Yeah, I know why you're asking me this, because she's married to me. But most Chinese people would just look at you bemused and say, I don't know what you're talking about. There's a digital economy here, and there are people who get blocked from use of it. And there's always, I call this the seed of truth inside the misinformation. There is a digital economy. If I show you pretty much everything I've done, I've got 30 messages on my WeChat at the moment. People just use WeChat all the time. In my WeChat, I have a WeChat wallet, and that accesses the money. It's not digital coin, but it's a digital way of accessing real money inside my bank account, and it moves money from one place to another. Now, if I break the law and I'm on what the West would call on bail, they give you restrictions. Depending on the crime that you're accused of, and depending on the judge or the magistrate who gives you the restrictions, they would vary from you have to sign into the police station every day and that's probably quite a serious restriction. Yeah, you may not be allowed to mix with other people. You may not be allowed to travel without authority. You may not be allowed to use your bank account more than $50 a day, whatever it is. There'll be whatever restrictions the magistrate or the judge imposes on you are what would be imposed in China too. So if I'm guilty either of a crime or I'm involved in a civil dispute that relates to debt, then I may very well be restricted, and I may not be allowed to use my WeChat wallet. That's it. That's as big as it gets. I can't travel to another city because I can't. In China, you have to use your ID card to check into a hotel or to catch intercity trains. If you catch an intercity bus or an intercity train, you need to do so with your ID card. Why? I'm not really sure, but that's a fact, you do. And that is a restriction on human freedoms. I get that people don't like that, but what's the problem with it? It's a safe community. I'm not breaking any laws. What does it matter if they know that I've traveled to Guangzhou? But if I just get in a car and drive to Guangzhou, nobody checks. If I stay in a hotel, then I have to use my passport or ID card to check into a hotel. So there are some slightly more restrictions than they have in the West. But even in the West now, I've noticed you can't check into a hotel without ID in a lot of places. Most of the hotel chains won't let you in without showing your passport or some form of identification. They don't want Mr. and Mrs. Smith checking in all the time. And so they're starting to do this anyway. In many countries, I've noticed this. I found it in Vietnam, I found it in Laos, I found it in Cambodia, I found it in Sri Lanka. Where else have I been recently? Not many other places, but every country I've been to, I've had to show my passport to check into a hotel. So there is that. If you are, there is no totalitarian control. No one reads my WeChat messages, although they are capable of doing so. The only reason legally that they could do it is with a court order. So if somebody wants to monitor me, for whatever reason, they would need to get a court order to monitor my WeChat and my communications in exactly the same way as they do in the West. Police officers cannot access, without a court order, they cannot legally access my private communications. My private communications are exactly that, private. Now, if I get pulled into the police station on a charge of something, I've been arrested for something, then they could say, give us your phone. And they have a right to then monitor, because I've been accused of a crime or I've been accused of something. They have a right to check what's on my phone, and because it's part of a criminal investigation. So that's the same as everywhere, I believe. So when the FBI want to check your phone, they will check your phone. Whether you want them to or not, they're going to check your phone. When the Metropolitan Police or the Federal Police or whatever police you have want to do this, they will do it. They have the right to do it under their laws. Same thing happens in China. Now, there is a social credit score. There is a thing called social credit score in China, and it relates to businesses and how they interact with their communities. So they get points for being good corporate citizens. It's nothing to do with people. There is also an app, it's a national app, that we can sign on to. And this national app allows us to, what's the way to describe it? If we volunteer, and I've contributed to the community, I'm a volunteer in the disabled community, and I can sign on to this app, and my community volunteer leader will verify that I have done this much work for the community. Now, when I've done a certain amount, I get points. There is no compunction for me to join or not join. I don't. I'm not in it. I choose not to. But if I wanted to, I could get points. Now, if the government organizes a basketball game and all the tickets are sold out, I can get first choice for those tickets because I'm a community volunteer. That's how it happens. Normal people can't get in. So you get benefits from this. If I want to send my son to a better school, then I can get my son into a better school by having points on my, what they call the social credit score. It's not a social credit score at all. It's a completely different thing. It's beneficial to society. It encourages people to do right things, and it helps people to achieve better when they have done the right thing by the community. It is not a negative thing at all. It's 100% positive, and no one is forced to be in it. So you can't get demerit points for not doing stuff. And you do get fined if you break the law, and that's the same as every other country. You do get points on your license if you drive too fast. You do get you might get humiliated a little bit if you're crossing the road illegally and there's a big TV screen there. You might see your face. Oh God, I've been caught. But there's no penalty for that. It's just everyone sees you just broken the law. Hey, you've broken the law. It's a kind of a humbling experience to stop you from doing it. They're managing your behavior rather than profiting from your misbehavior. That's the way I look at it.
So it's largely part of the expression of Chinese meritocracy, in incentivizing good behavior rather than punishing and controlling.
Yeah, I've used this phrase many times. The Chinese police manage our behavior. Western police profit from our misbehavior. And that's the difference. Chinese police are just manage. I don't know anyone who gets arrested. It's just, you get, friends of mine have had speeding tickets and they get 2 points on their license, or 12 points on their license. It's the same as the West. If you do something wrong and you get caught, you get punished. If you don't do anything wrong, no one's going to punish you for that. It's just, it's a crazy little, it's not a misunderstanding anymore. It's disinformation now. It used to be a misunderstanding. There is such a thing as a social credit score. And it was set up to manage how corporations deal with their communities, the communities that they're in, where they are in terms of how they deal with their pollution, their employment, their environment, and how they deal with their customers and how they deal with their suppliers. And you get social credit scores for this. It's nothing to do with society. It's to do with how corporate business acts. That's the real social credit score.
What about censorship?
Yeah, we have it. So do you. So does every country. The difference between Chinese censorship and Western censorship is you know where you stand. There are laws. China has in the Constitution the fundamental right of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of protest, freedom of assembly. It has all of those things. They're written into the Constitution. Around about Articles 30 to 35, you've got all of these freedoms in the Constitution. So we do have that living here. What you can't do in China is you can't insult people, you can't incite people, you can't be aggressive towards people, you can't be hateful towards people. There are laws. So the Constitution says you have freedom of speech. The law says you can't do this, you can't do this, and you can't do this. And to be honest, when you understand these laws, they make perfect sense. Now, the only people who might not like them are people who want to be racists, people who want to be hateful, people who want to be nasty, people who want what they call it, disharmony in society. The people who want to live in a nice society where you don't have problems with your neighbors are very supportive of this. And you talk about the biggest myth in China is that Winnie the Pooh is banned. Winnie the Pooh has 2 rides in the Shanghai Disney. I've got a Winnie the Pooh mug. The Winnie the Pooh cars driving around town. One of my friends just posted a picture of one on Twitter, Andy Borum. He said, "Oh, this person's going to be disappeared." Just a joke, because Winnie the Pooh is an extremely popular children's character. What you can't do is insult the president of China by comparing him to a cartoon character. That is against the law. But you can't insult me either by comparing me to a cartoon character. You break the law. It applies to every single person, from the lowest of the low. And I'm not even going to say who the lowest of the low are, because people in China are all equal. There are no low people in China. They are all equal. But no matter what job you have, no matter what part of society you come from, if someone insults you, you have the right to have that insult removed and an apology given. That's it. Simple as that. If the insult is not removed, then penalties may apply. It's that simple. So yeah, this myth about the Winnie the Pooh thing is just stupid. It is just people who want to be hateful. So I don't have a problem with it at all.
Chinese people can protest, right? I've seen reports saying there are dozens or even hundreds of protests happening across the country every day. Is that really the case?
Yeah, Tsinghua University did a paper on this about 10 years ago, and maybe less than that, maybe 8 years ago, but certainly during Xi Jinping's era, there was a paper written by Tsinghua University where they counted 500 protests a day, every day in China. Now, there are only 700 cities in China, or 717 cities in China, and they have 500 protests a day. Now, the difference is protests here, they rarely turn violent, and they are very, very rarely disruptive. When they are disruptive, almost always they are Western funded. And that's not conspiracy theory. That's a fact. It's been proven. When they are disruptive or violent, they are funded externally. What happens when people protest is they have a grievance. They might have a grievance against their employer or their local government, and they go en masse to the office that they have the protest. The police will turn up, and the senior police officer say, "What's your protest about?" And then they will deal with your problem. Now, you won't always get the result that you want, but you will always get the result. Against this dam in your valley, and you don't want that dam, well, you're going to get that dam eventually, whether you like it or not, because it's necessary for the good of the nation. If it's nationally required, then you're going to get the dam anyway. So what we're protesting about is not getting the dam or not having the dam. It's about the conditions around the dam. What are you going to do with the people? What are you going to do with the land? How are you going to reward us and compensate us? Those are the things that people protest about, and they all get addressed. And they must be addressed. And this is part of the National People's Congress thing and the whole process, People's Democracy. When you lodge a complaint with the National People's Congress, it goes onto an app on your phone. So you get regular feedback on what you're complaining about. Now, you don't have to protest anymore if you don't want to. You can just pick up the phone and dial 12345 in any city. Now, if I want to make a complaint about something in Beijing, I dial Beijing 12345. If I want to make a complaint about something in Zhongshan, where I live, I just dial 12345, and it goes through to my local government office, and it's a recorded call. And if I ask, can you call me back in English? They will. They'll call me back in English, and I will tell them what my complaint, what my suggestion is, what my reason for making this call is. And it does actually work. I've used it. I've used it in a place called Yunfu in Guangdong, where I was on my bike, and I phoned 12345 and said, no hotel will accept me. I've been told by the hotel that the chief of police in this town will not accept foreigners in any hotel. And they said, give me 5 minutes, we'll call you back. 3 or 4 minutes later, they called me back and they said, there are 2 hotels that you can go to. Here's one and here's another. And I went to the first one and they said, no, we don't take foreigners. So I phoned 12345 and said, speaking to the same person, and said, can you talk to the receptionist at this hotel? Bang, done. Yes, you do take foreigners. And I was allowed to stay in that hotel. So that works. 12345 does work. So you don't need to protest if you've got a minor complaint. One of my friends, he lives in an apartment, and outside of his apartment was a manhole cover, an inspection cover, I think we have to call them now. And it was loose. Every time a car went over, it went ba-bang, ba-bang, as it went over and then resettled. Ba-bang, ba-bang. And so he called up. 2 hours later, that was fixed. That matter was resolved. That's how you do things in China.
Huge thanks to Jerry for sharing such amazing insights. Our next chat will dig into how the political systems really works. And you'll hear the incredible story of a migrant worker who changed the lives of millions. If you enjoyed this video, hit like, share it, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what's coming next.